So what happens when you find yourself in that horrible situation when someone has told you that unfortunately your caravan, your pride and joy, has got water ingress? Now, this can happen for several reasons. You can find it yourself, or you can go and have a damp check done. Now, I will say damp as well as water ingress. You probably know the difference between the two if you've watched my other video, my thoughts on that. Sometimes I'll say damp, but I mean water ingress. So sometimes if you've been given the bad news that you've got water ingress in your caravan, it can feel like the end of the world. What are you going to do? The end is nigh, because you've been around all the forums and you've seen that people say that as soon as you've got water ingress, it's game over, get rid of the caravan because you don't want anything like that in your caravan. Well, that's not the whole story. So first of all, we know what water ingress is. It's when water comes in through the caravan and starts to rot the caravan. And that's different to damp, because damp is the environment and you can smell damp and you can't generally smell water ingress. I'd say 99% of the time you can't smell water ingress, but you can smell damp. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that there is out there. But again, watch my other video about that. I won't go into that too much here. So if you have found it, or someone has told you you've got it, again, it can feel like the end is nigh, but it might not actually be that bad. Now, it all depends on your situation. So it's quite difficult to talk about it generally, because it depends on a few factors, like how old the caravan is, how bad the water ingress is, what you plan to do with the caravan as well. All those factors combined will you can come up with a solution once we've worked out what those factors involve, and then we can work out what the best way forward is. So I'll try and cover all the kind of different scenarios that I see. So first of all, what is the problem with having water ingress? Well, again, a lot of people think that it means that their caravan is unusable, but actually, most of the time, that isn't actually the case. So the two things that it is going to do, without a shadow of a doubt, is affect the caravan's value and affect the ability to sell that caravan if you're thinking about selling it, because people don't like having to buy a caravan with water ingress in, because it's the issue is the unknown. You don't quite know what the situation is with that water ingress. I mean, I've been doing it for 30 odd years and I'm still surprised. We had a caravan the other day that we thought was a £500 job turned into about a £3,000 job, because you can only see that little bit. So we still get surprised. So it's very difficult for you, the people that don't do this for a living, to know exactly what it lays behind those indications of water ingress, and the readings as well. Sometimes it's hard to actually understand what those readings mean when you get the report back. Now, the reason I decided to do this video is because I look at some of the Facebook pages and posts, and I saw one the other day regarding a 2008 Bailey, and unfortunately most of the advice on there wasn't overly constructive. Having done this a lot and tried to seal caravans up and try to use various methods to stop water getting in, it's pretty rare that you can actually do that. Let's put it that way. So I'll go through in a second in a bit more detail that. But that's the reason I wanted to do this video, is because I saw the comments on there and I thought that this just isn't going to work. But again, without having to speak to the actual person who posted it, I didn't know their situation or what they wanted. It sounded like they'd just bought a caravan and they'd taken it for a service and found it had water ingress. Now, that's again another reason that I want to do this video, is because I see this fairly often, and this is what got me to do my ideal caravan course in the first place. I was trying to help people and stop people from buying caravans privately when they don't know what they're doing. And I hate to say it like that, but that is what's happening. I think early last year I had a caravan come in for a service, and it was a Luna, and I kind of put my head in my hands straight away because of the age of it. And they said they just bought it for £4,500, and they bought it in for a service, and unfortunately it had about £5,000 worth of damp in it, or water ingress, sorry. So yeah, that wasn't great, and I hate having to give that that information over to someone who has just bought a caravan and looking forward to going out and using it, and then I turn around and say, look, I'm sorry, look, it's got this amount of water ingress in it. But in that case, still wasn't the end of the story. They bought it privately, so unfortunately there was no comeback at all. You couldn't go and get your money back. You're relying on the goodwill of the previous person, and that wasn't going to happen. So they were stuck with this caravan that they'd spent £4,500 on, and it pretty much was worthless. But after the initial shock and unfortunately some tears, we kind of made a plan that was workable, and it meant that they were looking at an issue where they had a completely valueless caravan and they were just going to throw it away, to actually, look, let's do this and we can use it. So the reason for that is, like I said, it affects your value and it affects the ability to sell it. Now, not every time does it affect, or actually most of the time it doesn't affect the ability for that caravan to be used, only in extreme cases. And I unfortunately had one yesterday, which I might talk about in a second, where it's that, it is really that bad that you can't actually use the caravan. So the only difference that they had on the view of that caravan, before and after I told them, because they bought this caravan and it looked great, looked fine, looks okay, and there was no smell, there was nothing detrimental to actually using that caravan. The only difference was that I then informed them that it did have this water ingress that they didn't know about, so they were quite happy to use the caravan before they knew it, and so really there isn't a reason why they couldn't use the caravan after that. The only thing was it was quite bad, so I wouldn't recommend towing it. So what we actually did was work out that they could find a seasonal pitch somewhere, use it for 2 or 3 seasons, put a cover on it over the winter and cover it as much as possible. And then at least they're going to get, 2 or 3 or 4 seasons out of it until it gets to the point where, you can't use it anymore. So, it wasn't completely the end of the world. It wasn't great, obviously, because, the value of it has completely disappeared. But if they could get 2 or 3 years worth of use out of it, at least that they're doing that. So that generally, does happen quite a lot when we see water ingress and it's got a bit of damage on it. Then we find out exactly what the customer's going to do with it. So if you are trying to sell it, then that is probably the biggest issue, because now there's water ingress. Most of the people that I know and sell caravans have got good scruples, and they won't just try and sell it and pass it on to someone else without saying that. So generally, that's when we get into a kind of how much is it going to cost to fix? Is it worth fixing? Is it worth just selling it cheap? As it is, it's kind of like I said, every single scenario is different. You've got to kind of work out which scenario you're in, and I'll talk about that after I make my cup of tea. So you've got water ingress, you're trying to sell the caravan. The next thing to work out is how bad is the water ingress and what is it going to cost to fix? Because you've got 2 scenarios. You can spend the money on having it fixed, so that means your caravan is completely water ingress free, and then it makes it much more sellable. Or you can sell it cheap, because say it was going to cost you £2,000 to fix, you're going to spend £2,000, your caravan's going to be worth £2,000 more, but it's going to make it more sellable because it hasn't got water ingress and it's just been done. So that's the best case scenario. Obviously, the only caveat to that is time scale, and then does it only cost £2,000? We don't know that until we actually start stripping it apart, because like I said, you can't work out exactly how much it's going to cost until you start really looking deeply into it. But it then makes, if you spend that money, spend that time on doing it, it makes it much more sellable, and you're going to get your money back. So you're not losing anything. But then you've got the hassle factor. So if you don't do that, then you could sell it cheaper. But say it was an estimate of £2,000 to fix, then you kind of think, well, you're going to at least have to knock £3,000, maybe £4,000 off of it, because of that hassle factor, and you're reducing your market right down to not many people at all. There are people that do buy the caravans and do them up, and so they'll take them home and then strip them out and then take the risk, because if they're a carpenter they can do it themselves. So you have got a market there, it's just very small. So that's the issue you've got if you're trying to sell it. Do you spend the money on it to get it up and running and absolutely all fine, so you know that there's no problems with it? Then you've got a certificate or a ticket or something to say that it's all good. It's going to make it a lot easier to do, but then you've got time scale. Or do you just sell it cheap and don't worry about the hassle? But again, it depends on its value. So if you've got a £5,000 caravan and it's going to cost £3,000 to do, then you think, well, there's no point doing that because it's only worth £5,000 anyway, and then you've spent effectively you know, a good chunk of that on it. So at that point, if it's a £5,000 caravan, it's not worth spending the money on. You knock it down to 2.5 and just sell it, and off you go. If it's £10,000 upwards, then that's where it's worth doing. Because obviously, you know, it's a newer caravan. It's going to be more modern. It's going to be worth doing that that water ingress. I've got one down here at the moment. I've got a Swift Conqueror that's got damp in it. It's worth doing because at the moment I've had a few people look at it and like it, but obviously, you know, I'm trying to sell it with water ingress in cheap, but you know, I haven't found the right person to do that. It's a bit different for me because I can sit there and wait until someone comes along who wants that, and that does happen fairly often. By the time I've actually got it through the workshop, it's sold because someone has come along, and maybe a builder wants it for 6 months to live in while they're doing the house up, so it's cost effective for them. So there's more than one type of person to sell a caravan to, but it's whether you can find those people. Obviously here in a dealership, we get lots of people coming in various different situations, so it's a bit easier for us. But yeah, you might not find that, but you might do. So yeah, if it's £10,000-15,000, then you kind of pretty much got to do it really, because people don't want to spend that kind of money on something with an inherent problem in it, and that they're going to have to sort out themselves. The risk is just too great. So I would say if you're at the newer end of the scale, then you're probably going to have to fix that water ingress before you can sell it. The other thing is, if you want to keep the caravan, so you could then see it as an investment. So say you've got a £10,000 caravan with water ingress in, but you absolutely love it. There is nothing else you want. The layout is perfect, everything's great, and you're using it and it's fine. Well, then if you've got £2,000 worth of water ingress in, then if you're going to keep it for the next, you know, 7 or 8, 9 years, whatever, then it's a fantastic investment. So you can spend that money, and then you know that the caravan's okay. And the key important thing then is to keep an eye on it. Now, I probably should have said that at the beginning, or maybe right at the end, but I'm going to say it now and probably at the end as well, is that the thing to do is to check your caravan, get your caravan checked on a regular basis. Buy one of these damp meters. Hang on, I've got one here, one of these. There's another video I've got on these cheap meters that are really good actually. This particular one here. So if you have a look on my other videos, I'll put a link to it at the end of when I test one of these against my £400 job. These are really good. So you get these, and then you can, I don't know, it's got a battery. Yeah, it's got a battery in, and you can scan the floors and the walls, and it will tell you what you've got. So get one of those. 35 quid from Amazon could be the best thing you've ever bought. Then learn how to check the caravan. Learn by watching videos, mine and others, of where water ingress is in certain particular caravans, and then, you know, keep an eye on it, because the sooner you find water ingress, the better it is, because you can address it and it will save you money. I've had customers that haven't had the van service for 4 years because they didn't use it, and there's £4,000 or £5,000 worth of damage in it because they don't know what they're looking at. And don't forget, for them, you know, any issue happens ever so slowly, so you don't really notice it. We can walk into a caravan and see it and go, how come that wasn't obvious? But to someone who's owned that caravan for 3 or 4 years or 5 years, whatever, they're seeing something ever so slowly change, and you don't notice it, but you know, we can notice it straight away. So learn how your caravan is constructed, what it's made of, and what the likely points of water ingress are, because that's going to give you the heads up on, you know, on anything that's going to happen in the future. And get it tested. You know, every now and again. I do recommend a service once a year, and the main reason I recommend a service, gas check, and also water ingress check, because it is the most important thing. It's the thing that's going to cost you the most money and give you the most hassle, is having water ingress in the caravan. Just to get back to the customer who had the issue with their van at £4,500 and it wasn't worth much. That's why I set up my ideal caravan. So if he'd have done the course, he would have been able to see where to look and what to go for, and maybe learned that buying privately wasn't a great idea because you can't get your money back. They didn't even know that. So if you go to myidealcaravan.co.uk and have a look at that and sign up to that course, it's £9.99 for a year subscription, which you can cancel straight away so you don't forget, which is what I do, or £35 for a lifetime subscription. But if you have a look, there's lots of videos that aren't on YouTube, and there's also more information there of how to buy a caravan, plus lots of other things. But if he'd have done that course, I'd like to have thought that he would have at least asked a few pertinent questions of me, and I would have told him not to buy that Luna in the first place, and where to check out, where water ingress is likely to be. So myidealcaravan.co.uk could be the best thing you ever do if you're looking to buy a caravan. That's why I did it, because on the back of that scenario, I thought if I could have just got to him before he went to bought that caravan, then I would have stopped him from spending that money. So that's why I did it. So check that out. So those are the things that can affect what happens to you when you have water ingress: the age of the caravan, what you're going to do with it, whether you're going to buy it, sell it, or whether you're going to keep it, whether it's worth investing in doing the work, and then you're going to see the return on that investment by keeping the caravan for a longer period of time, or whether you just sell it and get out of it and don't worry about it. Those are the few things that you can do. But a little bit of water ingress in a van isn't going to stop you using it. And the other reason I want to do this video is because of the Facebook post where they were saying that you can seal the caravan up from the outside. Now, I don't recommend, well, I do recommend trying to do that, but over the 30 years I've been doing this in the workshop, I was like that at the very beginning. I thought, that's okay, we'll just seal the caravan up and it will dry out inside. Fairly quickly worked out that you can't really achieve that very often. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I have seen a few caravans that I've gone into and there's been you can see that there's been water ingress, but it's dry. So obviously someone has sealed something and then the water stopped coming in and then it's dried out over a period of time. But it's very rare. We don't see that very often. And it does surprise me every time, because I can obviously see that there's an issue and I put my meter on it and it's dry and I go, oh crikey, that doesn't happen very often. Let's put it that way. So because I did this for a living and I was charging people to do it, I very soon worked out that actually, we would charge someone to do a job and then a year later it still hadn't fixed it. And then we tried it somewhere else and it still hadn't fixed it, and somewhere else and it still hasn't fixed it. So we worked out that it's actually, it's not a pointless exercise, because sometimes, like I said, you can get it right, but in the vast majority of times you don't know where the water's coming in. Now, that's the other thing that we know, is because the only way to find out where the water's coming in is to strip the panels out and then have a look at it, because you can then see where the water's going or coming from, because it kind of starts at the top and then fans out. You can see actually where the water's coming in. So when we do a job, we take the panels off, we find out where the water's coming in, we address that issue first, and then pretty much put it back out in the rain again to make sure that the seal, that we've sorted that problem out. There's no point replacing the boards if you haven't solved the problem in the first place, because again, we've done this. A year later, it's damp again because we've missed where it's coming in. It can come in more than one place. That's happened, where it looks like it's coming in here. It's actually running in and coming in down there. We sealed that and then didn't realise it was over there, because water ingress only really does its damage when it stops or where it's held up. You can have water tracking along somewhere and actually not doing any damage and not showing any readings, and then it's where it actually physically stops. That's where you get it rotting. So with your meter, you could be looking at somewhere where the water's going through but not actually doing much damage. We've certainly had that before as well. So the only way to really know where it's coming in is to strip everything out and have a look. Now, we've had indications where, it looks like it's coming in from an awning rail or a marker light at the top because it's in the back corner, but it's coming from the roof light, tracking along and then coming down and out there. So you could be sealing the rail up or that light, and then it's coming in somewhere else completely. So the vast majority of times you can't tell where it's coming in. So sealing something up is going to, you're going to be wasting your time, but you could do it. So sometimes even now, if a customer wants something sealed up, if it is that £5,000 caravan and they don't want to spend the money and they're going to use it a couple of years and then throw it away, then we can say, look, we can try and spend an hour or so just sealing up what we think it is, and if you're lucky, it will solve the problem. But we certainly don't guarantee anything, because I say, look, we don't really know where it's coming in. Could be coming in anywhere. So that means it covers us, but they don't mind, for the sake of £100, it's probably worth a try. The other thing is the method of sealing. We see some quite bad attempts at it. So if you get some Sikaflex or some CT1 or something like that and kind of go around the edge of it, most times when people do it, when they don't really know what they're doing, they kind of trowel it on. So you got to know what you're doing with that to be able to make it look neat and tidy. But also, if you've got an awning rail and you're sealing across the top of it, it doesn't adhere very well to both surfaces. And then with the movement and then the sun and then the rain and the frost, it tends to actually lift that ceiling anyway. So it's not very often that I see sealant over an awning rail that actually works very well. Roof lights aren't so bad because they're flat like that, so you know it's a bit easier to get the sealant to go around it. But even so, I still don't think it's that effective. The best way to do it is to take out a roof light and rebed it in a bond and seal. Now we don't use bedding mastic anymore. We don't use Sikaflex. Well, there is one Sikaflex. I think it's 512 that we use, but we use a bond and seal by Worth. That's what we use, and that's kind of a next level on of sealant, and that's what the manufacturers use. They use a bond and seal now. Which the good thing is it's pretty robust. Bad thing is when you try and get it back off again, it's a lot harder to do. So hopefully you get it on, sealed, and then that's it. That's really all we do. We don't tend to go around anything, like I say, unless it's a kind of just a guess as to where it's coming in. But it doesn't generally do the job very well. If you are going to get a job done, don't then seal something to stop it getting worse, because it takes us longer to get that off than it does to do actually any use. So don't do that. Best thing you can use is a Gorilla Tape. We use clear Gorilla Tape if you can, if there's a nice flat surface or you can get it on. That stuff's really good. We actually call it Swift Tape because the amount of Swifts we have to use it on with cant rails and windows, sunroofs, we call it Swift Tape, which you probably shouldn't do. But yeah, that's really good. So we use those more on the composite vans. So you know, you've got the Swift Construction and the Baileys, but we do use it on some of the others as well. That might be a way to, especially if you're going to have the job done, you can put some tape over it. And he said Swift Tape again, and at least you're trying to do something. And the beauty of that is it's easy to come off. Don't use duct tape. That stuff is a nightmare to get off. If it's on for more than a month or so, it leaves all the little fibers behind and it's a devil to get off. So don't use duct tape, use clear Gorilla Tape. Then we had in the forums, in that Facebook page, also people saying take the rail off and rebed it, like I've just been talking about. Now the problem with that is if you take a rail off, which I've done in the distant past, and the wood is rotten behind it, you then haven't got anything to screw to get that rail to adhere back to the side of the caravan. So it's very dangerous taking a rail off without repairing the stuff underneath it. Now you can test to see if the wood is got some substance to it. You can tell by the screws. If you take a screw out, or the screws are all, they only use cheap screws, so they're not stainless. So you'll see that they start to rust or get some like tannalization on them, I think it's called. If all the screw heads snap off, leave it because it's rotten and you're not going to get that rail back on. But if you take a screw out and it's nice and clean, you've got half a chance that actually you could put it back on again. The problem with taking rails off, especially with the newer caravans, is if they've been using the bond and seal, you pretty much wreck the rail getting it off. On the older vans, when they were using the bedding mastic, you had half a chance. It would take you 2 hours to clean the mastic off and put the new stuff on, but at least you weren't bending the rail. But these days you have to kind of wreck the rail to get it off, because you're kind of pulling it like that and cutting the stuff and pulling it. Yeah, and then you get into one section where you can tell the water is, because it's all green and wet behind that. And that's really annoying. But then, you know, you do have to buy new rails. So it depends on the age of your caravan as to whether you can get those or not. So taking a rail off or taking anything off is fraught with danger if it's too bad underneath. If you've got a reading of 50, then you know obviously there's something starting to get in there, but it shouldn't have affected the integrity of the wood. So you've got more of a chance of doing that, and that would probably be my first port of call. If we had a rail, if you had a reading in a roof and a rail on the side of the van, and it was easily take off a bolt, or you could get the new one, because they're not much money. They're only like 70 or 80 quid in some cases, and it's worth buying the new one than it is spending 4 hours trying to get the old mastic off. If it's a reading of 50, you know that the wood behind it isn't going to be too bad, so it might be worth trying to do that, is take that rail off and rebed it, but rebed it in something that's, you know, bond and seal that's really good. But then you have to test it in another 3 months. Now then, the only problem with that is you have to test it with the same meter, because it has to be, you have to have continuity with it. And talking of continuity, I completely forgot to mention something that did really kind of wind me up on the forums and on the Facebook page, and that is dehumidifiers. Now, a lot of people were saying put a dehumidifier in your caravan and it will suck the moisture out of the walls. Now, I have seen one of my colleagues using dehumidifiers to great effect. The issue was that it was in a pretty much sealed room. It was roasting hot so they could get all the moisture out of the air. And these dehumidifiers they had were industrial things. I think they cost about £3,000 each, and you had 4 of them. I mean, they were like a size of a small fridge, and you needed to plug it into the national grid to get it to do anything. And in that case, they were working. But I think if you went to Argos and got a dehumidifier for 50 quid, or even worse, use those little things. If you've seen my video on those dehumidifiers that people put in the winter, you'll know that I'm not a fan of them, because all they do is suck the moisture out of the air. They don't actually suck it out of what you out the sidewalls. And I don't really understand why people would think that would do it, because for the very same reason that you can't smell water ingress because it's locked behind the walls, then it can't draw the moisture out using a dehumidifier in the caravan. And the way to test that would be to put one in a garage and then put one in a caravan, and then run the two together and see if you've got any different water content coming out. And I'm pretty sure you wouldn't. All it's doing is sucking the moisture out of the air, and then there's more air coming in through the vents, and then it's sucking that moisture out of the air as well. So it may look like you've got a bucket full of water, but it doesn't mean that you've sucked it out of the caravan and it started to dry out. Now, I've never really got to the bottom of how they dry out, but like I said before, they do. I have seen them where the walls are still spongy to touch, but there's no reading there, so they obviously have dried out. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think putting a dehumidifier in the caravan to try and suck the moisture out of the walls, I just can't see how that can physically do that. And like I said, the only time it worked was when the whole van was stripped out and there was wood that was good and not worth replacing, but wet. And with the heat that was in the caravan, and then that dehumidifier left over over the course of a weekend, then it would actually do the job. But other than having industrial, kit, I don't think it's going to work. And you can try. Obviously, if it makes you feel better, you can try and do it. But I just don't think it's going to work. So I think that's covered most things without doing a 4-hour-long video on it. But yeah, so it might not be the end of the world. You can still use a caravan if you've got a little bit of water ingress in it. Depends on what you're going to do with it. If you're going to sell it, obviously then that is an issue. You can try and seal it from the outside, but the likelihood is that you're not going to be able to do that. But for the sake of an hour's worth of work and a bit of sealant, and again, depending on the age of the caravan, then it might be worth you trying that. Obviously, if the caravan is under warranty, then take it straight back and have that done. Because unfortunately, although the manufacturers say how great their caravans are with the new composite materials, the problem in there is that they have got wood in them at some stage, at some place. So what happens is the water comes in, doesn't affect anything that's composite or GRP, and as soon as it hits anything wood, that's what it damages. So with Swift, we have the sunroofs leak, and we have the shelves at the front go, and sometimes when the cant rails leak, that means it gets the side panels, the side cupboards all rotten as well. Why they don't make those out of composite materials, I've no idea. We were talking about that yesterday actually. It's like, well, you don't need to use wood. Use the composite material for the shelves and for all the cupboards, and then worst case scenario, then you're going to get a damp cushion because it's going to run everywhere and then land on that. So I don't know why they don't do that, but that's another story. And same with the Baileys. Obviously we've got wooden floors. Again, why they don't use composite floors, I've no idea. But the water runs down through the composite and then hits the floor, and then rots the floor. So just because you've got a composite caravan and the manufacturers have told you that it's free from water ingress, that's not the case. you need to learn where they're going to be affected, and then keep checking on those. With the Swift, you can feel along the front shelf. So if you're buying something, if you feel along the front shelf, you'll feel it like pitted and bumpy. That means it's had water ingress in it. But that, again, is cosmetic. It's not the end of the world. As long as it's the result, as long as it's been fixed, so it's not getting in again. A little bit of bumping in the front isn't the end of the world, especially on something that you might be getting 5 or 6 years old, or even more than that. So yeah, so keep an eye on everything. That's the key. Make sure you keep an eye on it. Get that damp check done on a regular basis, and then hopefully, if you do find water ingress, it might not be the end of the world. It just depends on your situation. So I think I covered everything there. If not, ask me in the comments, and then I'll get back to you on that. And don't forget to like, subscribe, but check out my ideal caravan, please. It could save you an absolute fortune if you go and have a look at that. For the sake of a tenner, it's worth it. You may well find that that one piece of information that's in that course can save you thousands of pounds. And it certainly would have saved that couple, all the drama that they had doing that. And I still see it. I still see people come in with caravans. I think, oh no, why did you buy that? You shouldn't have bought that. So I'm trying to get my knowledge into that course that you can benefit from. So hopefully that will give you some benefit there. So sign up to that, My Ideal Caravan. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.